Hello, good evening. It's Monday. It's the 3rd of May, and this is a really special show we're doing on over and over and over again. It's looking back on the 50th, well, it's the 50th anniversary of the first Arsenal double, of course, in 1971. Hello, it's over and over and over again. My name is Richard. I'm hosting the show tonight. I say it's the first in the series that we're doing on the 50th anniversary, of course, of the Arsenal double in 1971. I've got some special guests joining me, all of whom were there actually experienced the double in person. So it's great to have them on the channel. First of all, of course, he's our resident panelist on the channel. Is Melvyn. How you doing, Melvyn? You okay?
Yeah, fine, thanks. I'm looking forward to this one. Definitely.
No, it should be some good memories, I'm sure, that we've got. And also, coming on the show again, he was on once before. It's always a pleasure to speak to him. Of course, it is the one and only Tom Watt. How you doing, Tom? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right, Richard. Thank you.
Good. So welcome to the show. We have got Martin, who'll be coming on very shortly as well. When he's here, we'll add him in to the show. I mean, obviously, as we know, it's 50 years this year. In fact, this week since we won our first double as a club in 1971. Unfortunately, I was a little bit too young to remember it myself. I was only 2 at the time, but that's why I've got some guests with me who maybe memories go back a little bit further. I really wanted to kind of start with
Richard. That's what you mean. You just mean we're older, mate. That's all.
No, more experienced in life. That's all it is. I mean, what I wanted to start with was really, I mean, obviously going back to the start of the season, of the double season, we'd just come off winning the Fairs Cup, but we finished 12th in the league, kind of similar in a way to how this season seems to be going, actually. I just sort of wonder what the feelings were with the fans at the start of the season. How optimistic was everybody feeling about our chance of maybe winning the league or winning the cup or doing something special? I mean, Tom, what did you feel at that time in 1970 when the season started? Was you confident?
Do you know, I was still buzzing off winning the Fairs Cup, mate. It was the first time we won anything in, well, certainly since I'd started watching, and, you know, all the old geezers round me in the clock end, they were all going, it's 17 years now, it's 18 years now since we won anything. So I was still buzzing. That was, I mean, that's my single greatest ever night at Highbury, the Fairs Cup final against Anderlecht. So I think we were still buzzing off that, really. I don't remember thinking, oh, we're going to win the league or not win the league. I mean, you know, it was that Fairs Cup final was such a sort of completely kind of changed everything, really. And I think there was a lot of optimism just because of I think the nature of the side. It was more, what I do remember is I felt like this side belonged to me. There were so many homegrown players in there, you know, and it was just kind of my Arsenal, and obviously the first good Arsenal team I'd watched since I'd started in the mid-60s. So I don't really remember thinking, oh, I'm going to win the league. I probably thought, you know, when you're a teenager, you think you're going to win the league every year, don't you? So maybe I had that kind of optimism, but I don't think anything. Because we had, for a couple of seasons, actually, we'd made really good starts to the season.
Right.
And so we kind of all got a bit ahead of ourselves, you know, we're going to win the league and all that. And it all, for one reason or and even the season before, even the season we won the Fairs Cup, I think that season in the league we started really well, and kind of by October or so it was all sort of kind of coming apart a bit, but it was a team that was still being built, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing obviously if social media was around in 1970 when we finished 12th in the league, there would have been a bit of a meltdown probably, I suppose, even despite winning the Fairs Cup, I guess, at different times and stuff like that. I mean, Melvyn, were you quite optimistic going into that season as a fan back then?
I was a bit like Tom. Unbelievable that we won something. I mean, I've never seen us get past the 5th round of the cup before that season when we won the Fairs Cup. But we played the first game of the season, we played away to the champions, Everton, and we drew 2-2. which was no mean feat. And then I think a few games later, we played at home to Leeds, who were obviously a fantastic side. And we drew at home 0-0, one of the best 0-0 games I've ever seen, where Eddie Kelly got sent off. We played most of the game with 10 men. But hold on a minute, we've held the champions away. We've probably the best team going at that time was Leeds with Everton. We managed to hold them, and we could have beaten them that night. I thought we might be onto something here. Didn't think we'd win it, but I thought we'd do quite well because we hadn't done that well in the league for a long time. So I thought, you know, we could be in the first half a dozen or whatever, first 5. But as the season progressed, you got more and more confident.
That Everton game was obviously we got a 2-2 draw, but Charlie George got a really bad injury that game. And obviously Charlie was top man. He'd been, you know, he was absolutely going into the going to the Fairs Cup final. He had been absolutely instrumental. I mean, there was, I'm sure Melvyn will remember it. We played Ajax in the semi-final of the Fairs Cup in 1970. And just to give you an idea of how good Ajax were, Ajax went on to win the European Cup 3 seasons in a row after that. 71, 72, 73, they were, you know, Johan Cruyff, all of this. And I remember Ajax coming to our, and maybe that was the time when you thought, this is something special here. We beat Ajax 3-0 at Highbury in the semi-final, first leg. And Charlie George, you know, there's people like, you know, Cruyff and Neeskins, all these people on the pitch. Charlie was on a different, he was just different level to all of them. He scored twice. And you just thought, this is something quite special here. And then Anderlecht themselves were a really good team. They were basically the Belgian national team. So, but Charlie was this massive part of it as a player. But he was also a massive part of what Arsenal were about. Do you know what I mean? He was the one who was quite a functional team, really. Charlie was the one who would always do something different. And so it was great, as Melvyn says, really good result, first game of the season. But Charlie got injured. I'm trying to remember what he did. Did he break his arm or something? He was out for several months.
Scoring a goal. He got the equaliser.
His ankle. You're absolutely right. He broke his ankle. That's right. And he was out for the first half of the season, really. So, and then Eddie got sent off against Leeds, who were just, you know, Leeds were just horrible. So as Melvyn says, early on, you did think, oh, this is all right. But on the other hand, we'd lost Charlie.
Yeah. I mean, I've been lucky enough. I mean, you guys even more lucky than me. I've seen Arsenal win the league five times in my lifetime, which has been great. And every single one of those seasons, there was one game maybe that made me think to myself, you know what, I think we can do it this year. What was the game for you, Tom, in 1971 that made you really believe that, you know what, I think we can do this now? Was there one particular game?
Yeah, the Monday night at White Hart Lane, really. It was it was kind of, we were really good that season. I don't know. Look, because, you know, you say you've seen Arsenal win the league 5 times, and that's great with, you know, but you kind of you get to know how it goes with a season when you win the title. Yeah. I mean, me and Melvyn, we had no idea. We had no idea. No. And it was, you know, it was us and Leeds almost from sort of day one. We did remember beating Spurs 2-0 at Highbury. That was big. Was it? Am I right in thinking it was that season we'd done Man United 4-0 at Highbury? Or was that the season?
Yeah, it was. Before? Yeah, that was that season. Yeah, that was. Radford's got a hat trick. John Radford's got a hat trick. Yeah.
Was it that season? Was it the double season? Yeah, well,
we had a few forwards, you know,
that game's funny. I mean, it's funny you say Raddy scored a hat trick. What that game's really famous for is George Best threw 1-on-1 on Bob Wilson.
Yes,
if George Best was through if George Best was through 1-on-1, that was goal. And Bob Wilson, who ended up actually, to be fair, being the supporters player of the year that season, the double season, saved at George Best's feet and stuff. So in around there, I remember us we absolutely battered West Brom 6-2. And that.
What do you remember about that game, Tom?
But we'd made good starts to the season. And of course, West Brom we revisited later in the season, and in many ways we had them to thank for winning the league, to be perfectly honest, and the most offside goal in history. But that's as it may. So all the time, you knew you were in with a chance because we were that close to the top all the time.
You know that 6-2 victory.
But it weren't like, I've been here before.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
But that 6-2 victory is one of my favourite goals. George Graham did a wall pass, I think it was with John Samuels. He just gave it the 1-2 and volleyed it. I mean, it was magical. And everything we did that day was superb. It's a great performance.
No,
we scored a lot of
West
goals.
Brom were a good side, by the way.
Yeah, they were. That's
West
a good
Brom
goal scorers, didn't they? Terrific goal scorers.
Yeah, and as you said there, Tom, it was obviously that game against Leeds and West Brom later in the season where they scored that really offside goal that kind of set it up for us then to take advantage in the race for the title towards the end, didn't it? I know there was a lot of controversy over that at the time as well, which was obviously something a bit different as well that happened. No VAR, of course, in them days. Probably, thankfully, from our point of view. No,
absolutely. But then, that was just Leeds getting what they deserve, really, because they beat us 1-0 at Elland Road with a goal that absolutely should have been disallowed. Do you know what I mean?
Jackie Charles.
Absolutely blatant foul. Yeah, on Bob Wilson. So these things, as they say, they do even themselves out.
Yeah, and they did maybe that season for us. I mean,
I've just seen Tracy's question. 1953 was the season before, which I have to say I wasn't around for, by the way. And that was tight as well. We won it on goal difference that year.
Yeah, I think we did on the last game of the season. Yeah, we seem to have, in fact, 3 league titles in a row we won on the last game. Obviously in 53, 71 and 89. So we've been there and done it all, haven't we, over the years, I guess, with Arsenal.
No better way to do it.
Yeah,
we had a small hiccup though, didn't we? Stoke beat us 5-0 that season, believe it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was mad.
Yeah, you did.
What happened there?
But
it was mental.
I think everybody just dropped off. If you drop off, then it's the same. It's the same now, isn't it? You drop off a couple of percent, and anybody, and they had good players, they had John Ritchie and people like that. And I think once they get ahead, we had a very, very bad day at the office. But in a way, I think that because we went on a good run after that, I think it was that's how you tell, innit? It's how you react to a bad afternoon. And they reacted really well to that. I think, and there are a few inquests, but it also put a little bit on things. You know what I mean? People didn't get. It stopped people getting overexcited. And of course, we'd settle for losing that one because of what happened in the FA Cup semi-final. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we got our revenge. But that was another game that went down to the wire as well, wasn't it? We were 2-0 down in the semi-final, and it was only very last kick of the game almost, wasn't it? The penalty from Peter Storey that gave us the draw. Yeah. So, Stoke obviously were a difficult team for us to play against in them days, and as indeed they have been in more recent years as well, haven't they? I mean, for me, I'm looking at, obviously, I've studied the history of Arsenal a lot over the years, and obviously that first double season. What I noticed a lot about it was, certainly on the run into the season, there were a lot of 1-0 wins at home in particular. We sort of scraped games, didn't we? Certainly over the last month or so of the season. I mean, I can remember in '89 when we were chasing the title and there were a few nervy games at Highbury in particular. I mean, what was that like as a fan, being at them games when there was so much tension and pressure and we were just scraping 1-0? It must have been exciting, but probably very kind of nervous as well. I mean, can you remember a few of them games, Tom?
Oh, I can remember lots. I was going to say what Melvyn. I mean, I remember Blackpool. I remember Newcastle. I think Stoke was another 1-0 at home. There was there was a whole run of them second half of the season. But it was a bit, that team. You did always think if we get one, that'll probably do us. Do you know what I mean? They were so strong defensively, despite having, two people playing centre half who didn't really look like centre halves. You know what I mean? One was a converted midfield player, and one really could have been playing in midfield. Peter Simpson was great on the ball, but they were so well organised. Don Howe just deserves enormous credit. The job he did as a coach.
That's why I got him up there.
He's the top. To arrange, to organise a whole team to work that well without the ball was You know, it was testament to him, and it was testament to, you know, to the players and the you know, how they bought into it. So yeah, there were a lot of 1-0s. You're absolutely right, and they were nervous, but every time in those games, I don't know if Melvyn remembers it the same way, but in those games, at 0-0 it's tense, at 0-0 it's tense. But then as soon as we scored, you thought, we're going to win this now. Yeah. You know what I mean? There wasn't any. Do you know what I mean? You know what it's like? More recently, like we go 1-0 up in a game, you think, well, we could do with another one, could do with another couple, really. But then when we got that one goal, and by the way, some of the winning goals were there was a goal Charlie George scored against Newcastle from the edge of the box, volley from the edge of the box. Eddie Kelly scored an absolute screamer. I think it was against Blackpool. You know, some of those winning goals were worth it. It was tense, but like I say, once you scored, you thought, well, we'll win this now.
The thing is, we had players that we could score from most positions. You had George Graham, who could score goals brilliant with his head, unbelievable with his head. We had Charlie George, obviously, Radford and Kennedy up front, Armstrong. You know, there were so many players. Kelly, you know, even Story coming with a couple. We could score from anywhere. You didn't know what we were going to do next as a team. You know, and at home with the crowd, putting the pressure on the other team, they had to crack. You thought the other team had to crack because the atmosphere was so good. You know, it was wonderful. So they were great times. But as you say, we were sitting, never thought, oh my God, we're going to get beat. We mustn't let one in. It's just when we're going to score. And when we did score, you could relax. Not like nowadays, as you say.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, obviously, in that season, as you mentioned, Tom, Charlie George got injured very early in the season. I think Peter Simpson was out for a while as well, wasn't he, for a spell in the kind of first
he was. And I mean, they actually only used about 14 or 15 players in the whole season. But John Roberts, God rest his soul, John Roberts came in for Peter Simpson and he was exceptional. Completely different player to Peter Simpson. Peter Simpson, a great ball player, very, very left-footed. Whereas Garth, as they called him, John Roberts, was more a head it and kick it sort of centre half. Do you know what I mean? But
physical,
like I say, but they were so well organised as a team. That's what I'm saying. So well organised as a team that he dropped in and you never thought twice. You know, you have to say, although Simo was a fantastic footballer. You know, he would now, you'd go, now he's the kind of centre half that everybody wants. You know what I mean? Fantastic passer of the ball. Great reader of the game because he would, you know, I mean, I think I could run faster than Peter Simpson. But fantastic reader of the game. Brilliant, you know, passer of the ball. But as I say, John Roberts was a different kind of player. But it didn't it didn't really interrupt us.
No. I mean, I say, you know, two obviously really key players in the team, both missing, and you know, we still went on such a great season. I mean, I believe that Leeds, who came second, a point behind us, no team had ever got as many points as Leeds that season and not won the league. So it just showed how, right? So it just showed how impressive our total of points were that season. In fact, I think it was the second highest that we'd ever had in our history. I think just before the 1930 season or something. So, you know, that was an incredible, consistent set of results, wasn't it, in the league, the 42 games, you know, incredibly. And I say, despite having injuries to at least two of the key players for quite a spell as well, you know. So, I mean, do you think it was then, Tom, down to the organisation of the team as opposed to the individual players themselves?
Well, the individuals are, you know, they're part of a collective, aren't they? So I think a lot of players that season were just, you know, absolutely week in, week out. I mean, Ray Kennedy had come from nowhere, from absolutely nowhere, and scored 20-odd goals. So, you know, the first any of us had seen of him was scoring one goal in Belgium to give us half a chance in the Fairs Cup final, in the first leg of the Fairs Cup final. Suddenly, this lad turns up and he's scoring every week. And him and Radford, I mean, blimey. They were a proper unit. They were, I mean, you know, they were big, they were strong, Raddy was quick. Ray Kennedy was like, he was just, people just bounced off him. Do you know what I mean? And they had this fantastic understanding, which you thought, I don't know when that got organised, because they hadn't played together. Really, they hadn't played together before that season. and things just, George Armstrong had absolutely exceptional season. I think it was that, between them, Bertie and Don, they did get the very best out of the group of players they had. They set up a team. You see so often, you see a manager or a coach will go, okay, well, this is how I want to play. And he'll get players, force them to play a particular way. I think Bertie and Don looked at what we had, and they went, this is how we're going to play. This is what suits this group of players. We've got fantastic centre forwards. We've got a winger who plays right and left at the same time. I mean, literally at the same time. He's like two men most games, George Armstrong.
And up and down, Tom. And up and down.
And then for the rest of it, you just kind of, like Melvyn said, we had goals who come from elsewhere in the team, but really it was that kind of the organisation, the resilience was really what kind of, we had the ability in the team to win individual games, and we had the resilience and the consistency to have the kind of season that we did.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, from hearing that, and obviously from looking at the season on the record and stuff like that, I'm quite surprised, and I've always been quite surprised that team, having won the double, didn't maybe go on to have a lot more success immediately after that, because that didn't really happen, did it? The same players couldn't quite reach that same levels, could they? Again,
well, they weren't the same players. They weren't the same players, and people fell out. I remember we had a decent season in the league, 71-72, got to the cup final again, but lost it. So it weren't like we kind of, it weren't like a Liverpool this year. It wasn't like we suddenly dropped off a cliff edge. And there were changes. There were changes around the football club. Alan Ball came in, and for all that he was a brilliant footballer, he was never a fit for Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? He was on far more money than anybody else at the club. Let Frank McClintock go far too quickly and brought in Jeff Blockley. That never worked. Do you know what I mean? I think there was an intention to kind of I think the intention was to improve on the team. But I think they signed the wrong players. We signed the wrong players to do that with, really. And I think that that kind of cost us in the end. But yeah, I mean, since the 30s, Arsenal have never been able to do that, win the league 2 years running.
No, it's strange, isn't it? Yeah, we've never really dominated an era, have we? Like you said, since the 30s, despite having some great teams in that period as well. And there's quite a few people in the chat, actually, which is good to see. Ryan from the Mr. Arsenal podcast says, was there any point during the season that you believed Arsenal was going to win the league? We did touch on that, didn't we? Just before you came in, Ryan, actually. So you'll have to look back on that. Terry says, good evening, Richard, Melvyn and Tommy. Good evening, Terry. Thanks for tuning in. Brownie says he loves listening to the old football stories. Yeah, we all love listening to the old football stories, mate. Brilliant. Thanks for tuning in. Squibb says Peter Simpson, one of the best players that never played for England. That's
true. True that. I'll tell you. Maybe it was because he was. Well, yeah. I mean, Norman Hunter, Bobby Moore, I think, really was the player that was in front of Peter Simpson.
Yeah.
Bobby Moore was, and to be fair, Peter was brilliant. Don't get me wrong. And would definitely have had England games if he'd been playing now. But big call, isn't it, to say, Peter Simpson should have played there to Bobby Moore. You kind of understand it. Peter was good at a lot of the things that Bobby was good at. Do you know what I mean? Bobby Moore was another one. Couldn't run, but he understood the game, and he was great with the ball at his feet and had this fantastic calm temperament. Well, that's exactly what Peter Simpson had. Only Bobby Moore was Bobby Moore. So that's the reason why he didn't play for England.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got someone like that ahead of you, you can't have too many complaints. Maybe when you don't get selected very often, I guess, it's unfortunate, isn't it, for him? Tracy says, Melvyn and Tom, who were the best players we would have come up against at that particular time? John Giles of Leeds, obviously he was a great player, wasn't he? Who were the other players at that time that were, obviously Liverpool had a decent team.
Well, yeah, I mean, they had a team of good players, didn't they, Melvyn? They were, Giles and Bremner in midfield. They had Lauren, Gray, they had Mick Jones, Jack Charlton, Trevor Cherry, Paul Reaney. You know what I mean? They were, to be fair, they were a proper football team apart from the goalkeeper.
Quality.
They really were very, very strong. And, you know, every team then, because it was just financially, things were, it was, every team could afford good players. Do you know what I mean? People didn't get priced out of having good players, because the difference between the wages that were being paid at Arsenal, say, I mean, I think the Arsenal team earned, that double season, the Arsenal team earned £11,000 each. So the difference between the top of the league, the bottom of the league, obviously there was a difference in quality, there was a difference, but really every team had good players. You know, like we were talking about that West Brom game. You know, they had Tony Brown, fantastic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He scored a few, didn't he, Tom? Tony Brown, bloody hell, he scored a few goals, didn't he?
You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. You know, Tottenham at the time had Gilzine, and still had Greaves.
Jimmy Greaves.
Yeah, Mike England. You know, there were good players in every team. Stoke had John Ritchie, Terry Conroy there. You know, there were good players in every team, but Leeds were outstanding. Leeds were, you know, they were horrible. But the good thing was, and that 0-0 game, that's what proved it to us, really, because Eddie Kelly got stitched up, really. He's a young kid from Glasgow, do you know what I mean? Exactly. And they kind of wound him up, and I think Bremner went down the back of him or something, and Eddie reacted, and he got sent off. But the thing was, Leeds were horrible. And that Arsenal team just looked at it and went, well, if you want to play like that, we'll play like that. Do you know what I mean? Because we're all right, by the way. We've got Peter Storey, we've got Pat Rice, we've got Charlie George, we've got John Radford. All them people, they don't mind putting a foot in. Do you know what I mean? If you want to play like that, if you want that sort of game, we'll give you that sort of game. And you had to with Leeds, because a lot of their game, as well as their quality, don't get me wrong, a lot of their game was based on physical intimidation. You know, Giles and Brett. Giles was an unbelievable footballer. He was a monster. Yeah. He was a monster. You know, I remember, you know, he'd had his leg broken, I think, when someone went over the top on him, playing for Birmingham City. It might have been before he went to Leeds. And I think he kind of vowed that he would never get caught like that again. So it was always him who was going over the top of the ball before any, you know, in a 50-50, John Giles is going for the man, not for the ball. And they had that edge all through the team. And you had to say, we'll have that kind of game with you if you want. And that 0-0 draw, I mean, there were some wars. Some absolute wars. In the season before, the Leeds-Chelsea FA Cup final went to 2 games. Blimey, the replay at Old Trafford, unbelievable. The UFC, it was absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. But, you know, Chelsea did it, and Arsenal did it. They said, look, if you want that sort of game, we'll give you that sort of game. And there's another team that have fantastic players. Peter Osgood, Ian Hutchison. There were good players in every single team. And that, you know, it did mean that every team was a real contest.
Yeah, and I suppose that perhaps made that achievement even greater maybe than perhaps these days, when there's only maybe 2 or 3 teams that you have to beat to win the league realistically now, don't you, with the money that's going around. Squibb says there, Geordie Armstrong ran on Duracell batteries and a great player. Yeah, I've heard all the stories about that, and he does confirm it was Bobby Moore who kept Simo out of the England team. He also mentions there John White, who played for Spurs, actually. Yeah, he was a good player as well. John White. I think he played on the wing, did he?
Yeah, I'm not sure he was. Because John White, I mean, it's tragic.
He passed away.
He was in their double team, wasn't he? He was in their double team.
Struck by lightning on a golf course. When did he pass, Melvyn?
I reckon it was 67, 68 time. I'll tell you what, I went to local swimming baths then. It was indoor swimming baths with a couple of mates. And we came out and we saw the Evening Standard or Evening News would have hoardings at the headlines years ago. And it was John White dies. What are you talking about? We're talking about, got home. My father got home from work then and he told us it was like water what a tragedy. I never saw him play, but my old man said he was different class. He had a fantastic touch.
Absolutely.
He was a bit of a genius, he said. And for my dad, who's Arsenal, to say that about Spurs player, he had to be good.
No,
he wasn't in the double around a double year round.
Yeah, so he was struck by lightning on playing golf. He was on a golf course.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was involved. 70, 71, he weren't involved.
No, he wasn't about, but then he was sadly passed away.
I think he played in their double.
Yeah. No, he didn't play in their double team either. He was kind of in between.
He wasn't in the double team.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah. He might have been in the team. They won a European trophy, didn't they? Around 64, 65.
Cup Winners' Cup. They won the Cup Winners' Cup.
He would have been. He would have been in that team. John White would have been in that team.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Did you go to the last game at White Hart Lane when we won the league? Did you go to that game?
Yeah, and I got in.
I luckily got in. I was at school at the time, and me and my friend bunked off school. My dad had to phone my dad up to meet him for the game. Anyway, I got round my mate's house. Phoned him up and said, "Dad, where can we meet?" He said, "Where are you?" I said, "Why is that?" He said, "I just phoned up the school to find out where we're going to meet, and they said they can't find you. So I had to rush back to school, get re-registered, and bunk off again." Anyway, I managed to get in the Paxton Road. We got there very early, got in the Paxton Road in. I was 2 rows from the back, and before the game, I looked out. You can't see down, obviously. There's only that gap between the brick and where the top come down. I looked out, and you could see the streets away. It was mobbed with supporters. You could have got the same amount who was in there again, I reckon.
I know. No, that's what they reckon. There were about 50,000. Loads of Tottenham fans just sold their tickets. They didn't want to know. Do you know what I mean? No, that was funny enough without bunking off school, because obviously I bunked off school as well. And the funny thing was, my dad was headmaster at the time at Tottenham Park, just round the corner from Finsbury Park station. There, it is in Arts and Media, I think it is now. Anyway, Tolly then, so he'd actually said to me, "You better get up here early," knowing that meant bunking off school. So I've got up there. He said, "Come and meet me at Tolly." So I've gone up, and it was brilliant. It was like all these kids are streaming out to school, like running out to school to bunk off, and maybe they'd done afternoon registration or after whatever it was. And in the middle of it is my old man running as well to get out. And I remember we walked from Tolly, so we walked from Finsbury Park to White Hart Lane. And we got there. We were pretty early, actually. We didn't have any trouble getting in, but we went in. We used to do that occasionally, me and my old man. You know, if you paid an extra, like, I think it was about £1. If you paid an extra £1, you could go and stand in what a lot of grounds they used to call the paddock. So rather than stand at one of the ends, in front of the seats, in the sitting stand, you know, the stands on either side, they would have like a strip of terrace, and you had to pay a little bit more because it meant you could actually see the whole game. And we nicked in there. We went straight in there. So that was like literally straight off the high road, and you had to go in through the little narrow gates, and you got in. So we were at, the main stand at White Hart Lane, and we got in all right. I mean, I don't know what time it was, but we got in all right, and I think that was a good decision on the old man's part, really, and especially as he was paying, so he didn't mind extra shilling for getting us into the paddock rather than the Park Lane or the Paxton Road. But the place was full of Arsenal. It was just full of Arsenal. As I remember, there weren't no Tottenham fans there. Do you know what I mean? And all the Arsenal were on the pitch at the end. It was just unbelievable. That was tense, that one, because we had to win one. We had to win or draw 0-0.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was the kind of. I don't know if you recall, 3 seasons, I think it was before that. The first game of the season, we played Spurs at White Hart Lane, and we beat them 2-1. Phil Beale scored an own goal, I believe. Anyway,
Phil Beale
was unheard of.
Phil Beale, they used to call him.
That's right. Good player. And we surprisingly beat them because they were the better side at the time. That 67-8. Sorry. Anyway, the next day in the papers, Bill Nicholson said if you put me under hypnosis and said the worst thing can happen to me as a Spurs manager, he said it was getting beat first game of the season at home to the Arsenal. Well, obviously, I think when we won the league, might have been a bit different a few years later. Perhaps that might have been a worse thing. He spoke too early, really, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean that must have been. I mean, I know you said there wasn't many Tottenham fans in the ground. Was there actually sort of segregation in them days for when you went to away games?
No. I just think Tottenham fans didn't go. If you go, I mean, Tottenham were a good team. They finished third. Third. But the thing was, the best possible thing they could get out of going to White Hart Lane that night was to see Arsenal not win the league.
Yeah.
Would you go, seriously, would you go to an Arsenal game where there was even a possibility of Tottenham winning the league? You'd be anywhere but. You remember when we won the league at White Hart Lane for the second time? Do you know what I mean? All the Tottenham fans are going, they were celebrating. Great out. Yeah. Celebrating a 2-2 draw, thinking they stopped us winning the league. Hello. But you know what I mean? That's no kind of pleasure, is it? That's no kind of pleasure.
No,
I think a lot of, I heard stories that because obviously, a lot of, particularly that generation, like the older generation in those days, they had grown up watching Arsenal one week and Tottenham the next. Do you know what I mean? That was a big thing all through the 50s and into the early 60s. That was so. Arsenal Tottenham supporters, older generation, not my generation then, but older generation, they all knew each other anyway. And as I understand it, a load of Tottenham season ticket holders just sold or gave their tickets to Arsenal supporters. Because they didn't want to be there. Why would you want to be there? Yeah. Why would you want to be there? To watch us win the league? Oh. When you couldn't win anything.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
No.
So, as I remember it, there was just, I don't remember any Tottenham supporters. I'm sure there were Tottenham supporters in the ground, but I don't remember any of them. Don't remember seeing or hearing it.
I mean, obviously, I know a lot of people have kind of compared it, haven't they, to 2004 when we won it at their ground as well. But surely that nothing could come close to that 71. Like you said, so many Arsenal fans in the ground that night. And you could actually all celebrate it together. Obviously in 2004, we're up in the away stand, with the all seats, you can't get on the pitch. And I know times were different, but I mean, nothing would beat that, would it, that night? Surely not. That 71's got to top everything, hasn't it?
It was, yeah. I mean, the only thing was, of course, sorry, Melvyn, go on.
No, sorry. No, I was just going to say, you've got to remember, like Tom said, that was our only chance. Against Spurs, if we'd have got beat that day, we still could have played a couple of games and still won the league. That was our only chance of winning the league, let alone our neighbours. It meant us so much more. And like Tom said, we weren't used to those heights, were we, Tom? We didn't think we could do it. No. Where are we now? We're in a place we've never been before. So it was a very, very big thing emotionally and everything else. So it was a very, very big.
There was Liverpool, and then there was Liverpool coming up on the Saturday as well. In the cup final, there was Liverpool to come, sort of thing. So but it was, I mean, it's the only time I ever remember leaving White Hart Lane and you're not having to watch your back. That's what I mean about there were no Tottenham supporters there. You weren't watching your back. You just, I remember me and my old man, we walked down Tottenham High Road, went in the first pub full of Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? It's the first time in my life he'd ever bought me a drink. I was maybe 15, something like that. There's a pub on the left as you go down the high road and you know what it's like going to Tottenham. Away to Tottenham, it's like it's all right for the 90 minutes, but like getting there and getting away, you're always watching over your shoulder, and even now you're watching over your shoulder, and it's like, and it was always like that then. To be fair, it was always like that then. In some ways, it was even more. But that night, nothing. Wow. It was just like party on the. I mean, we were on the pitch for about an hour after, because we wouldn't get off the pitch until Bertie Mee come out in the director's box. That was the thing, was getting Bertie to come out on the. I mean, I don't know, a bunch of like however many it was on the pitch, 20,000 North Londoners on the pitch, and we're wanting this little sergeant major from wherever he was from, posh bloke, to come out on the pitch, to come out in the director's box. But that was it. Wouldn't go anywhere until he did, and he turned up eventually. That was
Do you remember what happened, Tom?
Brilliant.
I watched the news. Must have been the next day. The news on, and they put a microphone to Bertie and me on the pitch, and you know, the first thing he did, he apologised for his tie not being straight, because obviously, you know, he's that type of guy, wasn't he? He was like, everything had to be prim and proper. I do apologise. My tie's not quite right. I mean, come on, you've just won the league, mate. I don't care what you look like, you know.
I know. I think he come out in the director's box. He couldn't have come out on the pitch. He wouldn't have had. Never mind his tie. He wouldn't have had any clothes left.
Afterwards, I can't remember exactly what he was interviewed. He was apologetic about his tie not being on right. Amazing! What a night! But there were some great games that season. You know, we tore teams apart the first half of the season, especially at Highbury. We were just different class.
Yeah.
The football was. Yeah. They weren't used. Like, listen, everyone plans who you're going to play against, but teams weren't used to us playing with two centre forwards, with Redford and Kennedy. They couldn't handle it because they used to run off in different directions, a pair of them, and then meet up in the middle, and the whole defence, the other team's defence, didn't know where they were. It was absolutely brilliant the way they did that. As you say, the understanding between the two of them was fantastic. And going back to Don Howe, you say the way he arranged that team. You've got to remember, he's the guy that put Frank McClintock from midfield back to sweeper. He also put Peter Storey from a fullback to a midfield destroyer. And how successful was that? Absolutely genius. It really was.
Yeah. Well, it was very successful for Arsenal. I'm not sure. I think Peter Storey as a right back would have probably played for England non-stop for 10 years. I think he was. It was almost like he was too good to play at right back. Do you know what I mean? So put him in midfield because he was sort of top of the queue for when it came to games against teams like Leeds. You know, where they wanted a ruck. Then Peter was absolutely top draw for that.
Yeah, and he had a cool head, didn't he? Because he scored a lot of penalties, didn't he, that season as well? So he had you might have not looked it on the pitch sometimes, but he certainly had a cool head to that semi-final penalty, for example, as well, where he had to get past Gordon Banks, didn't he, in the last minute to keep us in the cup, and great mentality as well, didn't he? So,
Tom, I've told this story before. We went up to Sheffield for the semi-final, 2-0 down. You know the story. We get one back. Anyway, there was a few of us went up there. My father, my uncle, a few of us. All of a sudden, my dad gets up. He goes, "I've had enough of this." About 2 minutes to go, 3 minutes to go, he goes out the station. He goes towards the station. He's had enough of it. When we have a train, I've had enough of this. I can't handle this. He got very annoyed. Anyway, we get the penalty. Obviously, we score. We meet him at the station, and he goes, "You won't believe what happened to me." I go, "What?" He says, "I get out of the ground. I'm walking outside the ground, and someone goes, 'Effing Arsenal, I've got a penalty.' I put my arms up. Great. The guy gives me a right-hander. I said, "What did you do?" He said, "I don't care. We had a penalty." He said, "I didn't mind." He said, "Then I heard the crowd explode." He said, "I wasn't too unhappy at all." But he got a right hander. His natural reaction was yes. And he didn't really, obviously, as a Stoke supporter. But that game, that was really a strange game because there was not much between the teams, and all of a sudden we found ourselves 2-0 down. And Storey scored twice then, didn't he?
Yeah, it was one I remember. Really bad back pass by Charlie George, giving their second goal. But but funny enough, I weren't at that. I didn't go to that game. Didn't go to all that many away games. Went to the away games in London. Didn't go to all that many away games that season. Went to every home game. But so I was back in London, and it was back then. Even by the time the semi-final come round, everybody had like flags and posters up in their windows. Do you know what I mean? And I remember when Peter Scott, and obviously that game was live on the radio, which was quite unusual as well for a game. Like Arsenal away games, you wouldn't hear them that often on the radio. You'd be just listening for the scores. But that game, it was live on the radio. And I remember Peter scored the penalty. And I remember opening the windows and cheering. And you could hear up and down the street. I was in Islington and I was just off the Cali. Everywhere. You could hear people cheering. Do you know what I mean? That equaliser. And it was like, blimey. It literally was like a whole borough cheering. You could hear it out the window. It was a lovely sunny afternoon. You could hear them all cheer. And then, of course, we went to Villa Park, didn't we, for the replay. Oh no! Oh, was it Villa? No, it was Old
No,
Trafford.
Villa Park it was. Villa Park.
Oh, it was Villa Park, and it was a complete non-event, wasn't it? We'd done them 2, could have been 5. I mean, it was. They missed their chance. They played like they knew they'd missed their chance.
They were beaten before we kicked off, Tom. They were beaten.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the first time I ever went to Villa Park, and I was amazed at that stadium. I loved it. When I got there and I saw the red brick, that's the you got upstairs, the red brick.
Yeah.
I looked at that and I thought, wow, because before that I'd only been to London grounds and I've been to a few away grounds, but never, for some reason, never been to Villa Park. And it was, well, they in first division then, Villa? Is that the reason I've never been? I don't know. Anyway, first time I went to Villa Park.
I think they might have been the second or third division then.
That might be the reason then, because I fell in love with that ground. I thought, wow, this is something special, something absolutely special. As you say, we got a goal from a corner, great header from George Graham, and it was all over it by the shouting, really. Their heads drop before kickoff, as I said. We won it psychologically.
No, they missed their Yeah.
No, it sounds like which was just as well for us. Tracy asked a question there. How did teams recruit players in them days? Scouting, or was there academies? I mean, I guess they would have actually been scouted to get into the academies, wouldn't they? A bit like probably now. Is it the same, or would it have been a bit different?
Well, scouting would have been different. Scouting for young players was different then, because schools football was much more important, and you didn't bring young players into clubs until they were that much older, because schools football really was schools and district and county football, and so everybody would know who were the good players around. But, most of that team, to be fair, you can kind of go through them, but most of that team had come through the ranks. You think about Peter, you think about Pat Rice, you think about Peter Simpson, Peter Storey, Eddie Kelly, George Armstrong, John Radford, Ray Kennedy, Charlie George, John Samuels, all of them.
George Armstrong,
George Armstrong, they'd all come through youth. They'd all come through youth. Ray Kennedy, I think, was signed from Port Vale as a 17-year-old. Do you know what I mean? I think he couldn't get a contract at Port Vale, so he went to the Arsenal instead, and ended up arguably. Yeah, and ended up being arguably the definitive player of the 1970s in this country, particularly after he moved to Liverpool and went in midfield. It was just the most amazing. So a lot of it was about, and to be fair, Arsenal had that youth system, and what they had was they had a pathway. So, and that was credit to Billy Wright, really, who was pretty much he was pretty much a dead loss as a manager. Could not get by with, he didn't know how to deal with people like George Eastham and Joe Baker and, established players in a rubbish team or a very ordinary team. And so he started giving young players opportunities. So almost all of those young players that featured in the double season had either been given debuts by Billy Wright before he was kicked out in whenever it was, 64, 63, 64, or they'd been close. He had decided, we're going to have young players, because he knew how to deal with young players. He just didn't know how to deal with senior pros. And so we had this core, really it was a homegrown team. And then you had these one or two, like Bob McNabb, I think come from Huddersfield.
Yes.
George Graham.
Leicester.
George Graham. Say again.
Frank came from Leicester, didn't he? That was a good sign.
Frank came from Leicester as a midfield player, yeah. But George Graham, we swapped off Chelsea. They got Tommy Baldwin. No disrespect, but we got a deal there. To be fair, we got a deal there. So really, if in answer to the question, fundamentally, that was the academy, or what was then the academy, the schoolboys. That was the schoolboys. And you had a situation where, you'd had a manager before in Billy Wright who'd been prepared, to blood young players. So there was that pathway already established. And the other thing was, Arsenal were running, like everybody was running, more teams. There was no under 23s football. So you didn't have that disastrous period in most players' development. Under 23s, it's the biggest waste of time ever invented for 22 young men. There, you had South East counties, You had Metropolitan League, you had Reserve, the football combination, and then you had the first. So in the Southeast counties, you had anything, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. Metropolitan League was just around, just around London. They were third teams. That was the third team of 4. And then you had the reserves, which actually was quite competitive football then. The football combination was quite competitive. I used to go to a lot of, if I couldn't go away, I'd go to reserve team games. So that was a competitive league. You had big names would turn out playing, players coming back from injury, that kind of thing. And it was, it wasn't unusual to get like 3, 4, even 5,000 people turn up at, if it was Arsenal, Tottenham or something like that in the combination. So you had this pathway through. So you knew if a lad 18, 19 is good enough for the first team, there's no worries about him physically. There's no worries about him being able to compete. Because he's been playing against men, not against other kids. He's been playing against men since he was 16, 17. So now they've got to be absolutely outstanding to make that jump so that they manage to avoid under 23 football. So you have to be a Saka or Smith Rowe or a Foden or a Mount, someone like that who can avoid all that rubbish and just go straight into men's football. But then you had this pathway through. And, Metropolitan League, there were players who had entire careers at Arsenal and only ever played in the Metropolitan League and the football combination. And the whole point, they were never going to play Arsenal first team, but they were there to help the young players through. And you had, if you're running four teams, plus the FA Youth Cup, which we also won that year, by the way, in 71. You had competitive football for young players. So if they were good enough, you knew they'd be strong enough. They wouldn't get fazed by competing in against men. It was so that team was very much there were 1 or 2 important players who'd come from elsewhere, but really it was a homegrown team.
Yes,
it was a team out. Yeah.
And of course, Don Howe would later on, I suppose, help the George Graham team, wouldn't he, by bringing in a lot of young players in towards the end of his reign when he was manager of Arsenal in the 80s, in a similar kind of way. And it led to the team that George Graham inherited as well, didn't it? A lot of those young players that had similar pathway they had gone through, hadn't they? The likes of Tony Adams and Niall Quinn and all that lot, So it was kind of an Arsenal team, wasn't it?
It was slightly different in that George went, it's all right, you can all play. All of you. Go on. The lot. He put them all in. And he took one season to look at people like Steve Williams, Charlie Nicholas, Viv Anderson, people like that, Kenny Sansom even. Do you know what I mean? He took one season to look at them and go, not for me. Just get the kids in there. Do you know what I mean? And so, George deserves enormous credit for that. But that young team had really, it was, the youth system, it had actually been started by, I did do a thing for a book one time about that, that youth development as a tradition at Arsenal. It actually started even earlier. It started with George Swindon. He was the manager before Billy Wright in the 50s, who, by all accounts, really was hopeless as a manager. But it was him that said, we've got to grow our own talent. We've got to develop our own talent. That was back, before the day, that was minimum wage days and stuff. But it was something that came good 15 years after it had first been established. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I know it's always been an Arsenal tradition, hasn't it? Bringing the players through. And I suppose, like you said, the 71 team in particular was the fruits of all of that, probably from the previous. They were probably the best of the bunch, wasn't they? That all came through together and formed the basis of that team, which say went on to have one of the best seasons in the history of Arsenal, which is saying something when you look at the season that we've had. I mean, obviously the season finished at the FA Cup final at Wembley. Were you there, Tom, at Wembley that day?
I was. I was lucky, but so back then, me and my old man used to stand on the clock end because it was like that was when we walked from home. That was the first turnstiles you come to was the clock end. So we used to stand on there. And the thing then with cup finals was season ticket holders got a cup final ticket, but if you stood, what it was on the corner of the back page, which was the team sheet of each program, there was like a numbered triangle at the bottom of the page, like a little coupon with a number on it.
That's it.
And if you got to the cup final, what you had to do, they printed, I think it was pink, and they printed this thing in the middle of the program, and you had to tear that out, and it had all these squares on it, and you had to stick the coupons from each home game on the piece of paper. So me and my old man have been to every game, but we'd only ever bought one program. So we got one ticket to the cup final. And my old man done the decent thing, and I went over with some neighbours. You know, he wasn't really a football man, my old man. He'd grown up in Kent, and he was more of a sort of cricket man, really. But he got involved with football partly because of me, and he'd been at Holloway. He was a teacher at Holloway when Bob Wilson was on the staff, and Charlie George was at the school and stuff like that. So he got into his football, but he looked at me and, you know, we went, well, we got one ticket here. So he went, go on in. And I had neighbours who'd take me, who got me up to Wembley. I never saw him again. I don't think I see him till about an hour and a half after the cup final. But fortunately, I remembered where they parked. Yeah, that was I don't know. Did you go that afternoon, Melvyn? Was you at Wembley?
Yeah, I was there. I stood behind the goal, and I saw Charlie George.
How many people?
There were 100,000 there, Tom. Was it? Could it hold 100? Because it was standing then, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you're not telling me there was 100,000 in there. It was absolutely. I mean, because then what used to happen is people would go up there, and like one person to pay at the turnstile, chuck the fella another couple of quid, and all your mates would go under the turnstile. Do you know what I mean? It was the easiest place because they didn't have any permanent staff. It was just like people doing it for the afternoon. Do you know what I mean? The money wouldn't have been paid. So people are actually chucking you a few quid cash in hand. You let anybody in. I have never been crushed like that at a football match. I mean, it was scary, to be honest, because it was like it was that thing, you used to see it on terraces all the time, you know, that when one person at the back goes forward, like the whole terrace would go down. I mean, I remember when Charlie scored, I must have travelled like, because you're in pens, the terraces at Wembley were like little pens, each of which were about, I don't know how big they were, but you just travel from the back to the front. Done. When Charlie scored, it just went absolutely. I don't remember my feet touching the ground for 120 minutes. I was only, I was like 15, 16, so I'm like reaching up on people to try and see over the top. I was in the goal, behind the goal that Charlie scored in.
That's what I was as well. And I was there.
It was unbelievable afternoon. Unbelievable afternoon.
I remember Charlie hitting the ball, and you couldn't follow the ball because the ball's coming towards you. So it happened so quick. And my brain said, I just want to see that net move. I just want to see that net move. And once I saw that net shutter, that was it. With all of us, the whole side of it just went up in the air. It was unbelievable. So hot that day as well, wasn't it? So hot.
Yeah, absolutely. But there was all day. There was far more than 100,000 in that, and it was probably the same for every cup final. To be fair, there far more than 100,000 inside that stadium. It was an absolute crush.
Yeah. This was the ball that won the cup. That's Charlie scored with that ball.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Where'd you get that from?
I went to an Arsenal do about 10 years ago, and they were auctioning it off. So I was with my son. I go, this is going to be a ridiculous price. I can't. Right. Anyway, the bidding started, and it wasn't going very well. So I put a bid in. Then someone else put a bid in, and it reached my level. So my pal, who I still work with, I go, look, I've literally level. Do you want to go halves with me? He go, all right then. So we had our level. That was it. Luckily, our level got hit. No one went above it, and we got it. It took us an hour to get out of that place. Everyone was coming up to us for the photograph taken with the ball. Amazing, absolutely amazing.
Wow,
fantastic! But that was a really tense afternoon because you know, we knew we were better than Liverpool, but there was another team full of really good players. They had Steve Highway and, you know, really, really good players. But we didn't play that great. Lot of part of that, I think, was down to George Armstrong. Wembley never seemed to me to agree with George Armstrong. He was brilliant in the league. He was absolutely brilliant. But that afternoon he weren't himself, and so we didn't make all that many chances. We probably should have won it in normal time. Then Highway pings one off the post, off Wilson's near post, and he thought, oh no. But then we got that funny old goal down the far end, and then of course second half of extra time, we were still going, and they weren't. They were done. Liverpool were done. Well, once we equalised, you thought Liverpool had done here. It was that sort of, you know, we had that resilience, and that was right at the tail end of a long season, because we played a few games in the Fairs Cup as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Which. Yeah,
the German team beat us. Cologne beat us, I think.
Cologne, yeah. But the one thing about that double season, there's one thing that still makes me feel bad about that season. Was John Samuels. John Samuels was a fantastic footballer. Absolutely wonderful man.
Class.
Really wonderful, absolute class footballer, class human being.
Yeah.
Just
yes.
For some reason, Arsenal supporters, it was like if things didn't go well, it was always John Samuels' fault.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, me and my old man, we were big John Samuels fans, and there was something weird about it all. There was I don't know, maybe you'll correct me, Melvyn. I always had this sense there was something vaguely anti-Semitic about the whole thing with John Samuels.
I don't know what it was.
I don't know, but anyway. He'd been on the end of stuff, and then that Cologne game when we got beat by Cologne that night in the Fairs Cup, I think we'd lost in Cologne and we drew 1-1 at home or something like that.
Yeah.
And people were having a go at John Samuels that night, and he stuck his fingers up to the crowd.
Wow, I don't remember that, did he? But you know,
he
got abused, Tom.
Yeah.
The worst I see him get abused was in the FA Cup. I think it was that year we played Leicester away in the FA Cup. We drew away, and for some reason, the Arsenal fans, away fans, turned on him, and it was embarrassing. I'm sitting there thinking, what's he done wrong? I can't work out what the geezer's done wrong.
And it had been like
Leicester signed him.
2 or 3 years.
And Leicester signed him, strangely enough. They signed him the next season.
Absolutely. It really sort of, because he was another homegrown boy, scored the third goal that put the icing on it in the Fairs Cup final. Fantastic footballer. Didn't score tap-ins. He only scored from 25 yards. Do you know what I mean?
He used to whack it.
It really, I thought there was something really, that was a really horrible end to what could have been, what was a hugely successful Arsenal career, and what could have been a really great Arsenal career. Very, very gifted midfield player. But the crowd literally drove him out of Highbury.
Yeah, definitely.
That's to this day, it's kind of left a bad taste for me, and that was during that double season. It was when we got beat by Cologne in the Fairs Cup that all that happened, and he stuck his fingers up to the crowd, and Bertie Mee had him in and said, "Well, you know, you can't. Obviously, you're not going to play for the club again." And he was gone in no time. Didn't play again that season, I don't think. Maybe he did. Did he play again that season? I'm not sure he did, but definitely he was gone in the summer.
Yeah,
to Leicester.
I watched him come in. He used to work. We used to have a Young England game at Arsenal on a Friday night before the cup final, and I watched him come from the reserves. Used to watch him, and when he played for Young England, he was quality. He really was. He was in the same. He was in the same team as Geordie Armstrong when he first came in the team. They all come through together, and they were. I mean, they were just terrific. He was class. He would, in another era, he'd be great in another era. His touch was superb. He could hit a short ball.
Yeah, but he could have been great at our football club. He could have been great at our football club, but like I say, the crowd, once the crowd had decided that everything was his fault, and we all do it, supporters of every club do it, when things go wrong, you want to blame one person. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But John Samuels was always the one who got the blame. And, you know, he was Arsenal through and through. And he said, I remember I did a book in the early 90s, so that would have been 20 years on, you know, and I met him to talk about specifically about that. And, you know, he was well enough 20 years on, and he went on to have a really good career with Leicester and everything. It was never quite, but that, he was driven out of the club, and it was wrong. That it was really wrong.
Very sad.
Yeah. No, I
it was one kind of cloud on 71. Really.
Yeah. No, it's a shame. It is a shame when that happens to any player, especially one that, like you said, that's come through your academy. You know what I mean? It really is a shame, isn't it, when fans turn on a player? I mean, what sort of player was he then, John Samuels? How would you sort of maybe trying to compare him to in modern day so people can maybe understand what sort of player he was?
He was an 8. He was an 8.
Yeah, I'm right. Yeah. He was. Who would he be in the modern game? Who would he be like in the modern game?
Was he like an Aaron Ramsey? Would you say?
No, he wasn't as athletic as Aaron. It wasn't. No. He was more of
He'd spray the ball about. That's what he was. That was his game. Get the ball.
That was his great strength. He was. His great strength was passing, was long range passing.
Yeah.
Long range passing, long range shoot. He's good for 9 or 10 goals a season. And just, you know, didn't have pace, but would run for you. Do you know what I mean? He was a really, really good all-round midfield player, outstanding passer of the ball.
I think, would you say, Tom, would you say, not in his class, obviously, he was a poor man's De Bruyne in the way he played football? The way he passed the ball?
Yeah. De Bruyne is...
I'm not saying he's in his class, the style of his play.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think who you'd compare him to, really. I don't know quite who you'd sort of have to sit and think and work out who. Funny enough, if you think about this current Arsenal team, you'd play him ahead of Ceballos.
Oh,
that's who
he'd
be playing.
Oh, definitely, without doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. But do you get what I mean? That would really be his position. So an 8, alongside a 4, and in behind a 10. He was an 8.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, most certainly.
He would have got a medal, wouldn't he, for the league then? Because I think he would have played enough games that season, didn't he, to win a medal?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean he played a lot, particularly because Charlie got injured. So he played a lot. And obviously was kind of instrumental the previous season when we won the Fairs Cup. You know, he's a big player for us.
Yeah.
And could have been, I think he was. You look at people and you go, that bloke should have played his entire career at our club. But there were a few things like, whether you fall out with the crowd or you fall out with Bertie Mee like Charlie did, players like that, and you go, should have played for Arsenal forever.
Charlie, what about Ray Kennedy? What about Ray Kennedy? Well, I don't. Why did we let him go? He must have been about 21 when we let him go, didn't we?
Yeah.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah. Liverpool did pay money for him, and he played one game for Arsenal in the position that he played his whole career at Liverpool.
Yeah. That was a shame. That was. He was. What a player he was for us and for Liverpool. We won everything, didn't we? Yeah. He absolutely won everything at Liverpool. What a player! So in midfield, he was superb. Absolutely superb.
Yeah.
I only ever saw him play live once. That was for Swansea against Arsenal, actually, at Highbury. He scored. I think Swansea won 2-0 their first season in the first division. He was ending his career playing for Swansea, and he absolutely ran that game. He must have been well in his 30s by then, and he was brilliant that day. And he scored, I think it was their second goal. They won 2-0. And that was the first time I'd ever seen him play live. And obviously I knew he had played for Arsenal in his career and stuff like that, won the double and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was a great experience to just have seen him play, even though he was past his best, obviously. He was still a great player even then. And that would have been, 82 maybe? So, that would have been, 11 years after the double and all those trophies he'd won, and he was still a great player. So, yeah. So I just, I'm quite disappointed that, listening to some of your stories tonight, I'm disappointed I wasn't quite old enough to have experienced that season, because it sounded like it was amazing, really. And like you said, maybe you put it into context with what Arsenal had been for the previous 15, 16 years, really. And to suddenly come at the end of that must have been, I know what it was like in '89 when we won the league. That was the first time in 18 years as well, wasn't it, actually, funnily enough, when we won the league in '89.
Yeah.
Similar gap, but football was different by then, I think. And I don't know, I mean, that was great for me to see us win the league like that. But that 71 double, I think, is just something, stands alone on its own, I think, in Arsenal's history. I don't think you can really compare it to anything else, can you?
No, it was. And you've got to think that was when, thing is, as well, like, to do the double, there's only one team in history had ever done that,
Yeah.
And that look down the road 10 years before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you go, and to do that was now do the double every other year. We've done it two times, twice since. Chelsea have done it, Man United have done it. They've all done. Somehow it's not such a big.
No.
But I think it's partly to do with the status of the FA Cup these days. A lot of people put in weakened teams, and do you know what I mean, in the early rounds and stuff. Whereas then, blimey, like, that was the FA Cup. The FA Cup was the one game that was on telly, so it really mattered. It really mattered, if you feel, I can't believe it now, really. Arteta won the FA Cup last season and the Community Shield, by the way. And it's like, they won the FA Cup. I think when I was younger, how much the FA Cup meant. Now people go, "Oh, we've only won the FA Cup." You don't get it, do you? You don't get it. And I still think I love the FA Cup, and I love Cup Final Day, even if it was on telly last time. Do you know what I mean? I love Cup Final Day. And I've had such great times and such miserable times at Wembley. It still matters to me. And I go, and people go, "Oh, Arsenal have been rubbish for, ever." And it's true. It's a long time since we won the league. In fact, it's quite even we're in with even a half a shout of winning the league. But we have won these FA Cups, and I love them.
Yeah,
I love them.
Yeah.
And you go, well, I can think of a load of other clubs who haven't won anything.
Yeah. We know one in particular, don't we?
If they won the FA Cup, if you imagine what whole City fans would have been saying if they'd won the cup. Imagine what Aston Villa fans, how it would have been if they'd won the cup.
Newcastle,
we're entitled. Yeah, Newcastle, we're entitled, us lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
The modern Arsenal support is so entitled, and they go,
yes.
And it's a pity, really, because you miss out on part of what's really good about following your club. Do you know what I mean? And to be fair, part of it is about watching and supporting when it's not going well, and part of it is recognising, what is an achievement and what isn't. And the FA Cup for me, and like I say, to do the double that season, like, if back in the early 70s, if you won the league or you won the FA Cup, you had had an absolutely magnificent season, and they were on a par.
Yeah, they were.
They were on a par.
Yes.
Everybody could name the league winners. If you went 5 years back, 10 years back, everybody could tell you league winner. Everybody could tell you the FA Cup winner. They were on a par, because the FA Cup was such an occasion, always the last game of the season. Everybody wanted to win it, so everybody was in it to win it from the third round onwards. And the day out was just unbelievable, and it was on telly all day.
That's why, Tom.
The season where you won the league and you won the FA Cup, that is something very special indeed. Very special indeed, particularly when it's only the other mob who'd ever done it before. And they must have won it in '61 and spent the next 10 years thinking, well, nobody else will ever do that. And lo and behold, someone else does do that. And it's us. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and they've never recovered. They've never recorded.
No, they haven't. No, that's a
You're
shame,
right.
isn't it?
You're right when you say about the FA Cup, because years ago in the 60s and 70s, women never used to go to football, right? And if you asked a woman who won the FA Cup, they could probably tell you, because it was all round the house, it was on telly, they knew the team that had won, they might even know the finalists, right? You ask them who won the league, they wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And that's because the FA Cup was such a big thing. It was a big thing.
It was a huge thing. And you know, all the like I remember Evening Standard and Evening News, they would always do like a 25-page special edition cup final preview with colour pictures, by the way. With colour pictures. It's just so that season, you're right, that season was like no other. There have been great times since, and there was a great time before. Anderlecht is still my favourite Arsenal game ever. The second leg of the Fed Cup final, but we've had brilliant times since. But 71, because of when it happened in terms of Arsenal history, because it was a team that everybody in that ground thought, these are my boys.
Yes,
it's a homegrown team. They were our players. Do you know what I mean? They were our players, and of course there wasn't a gap between players and supporters that there is now, in terms of just the distance, social, economic, culture, everything. They're miles away. Miles away from all these sports. That team, weren't. That team, it was like they belonged to us. They really represented us. Do you know what I mean? And you just felt a pride in that team that you can't describe, to be perfectly honest. To be fair, 89 came close.
Yeah,
it had that similar feel.
I mean, it was probably better, but my experience.
That double team was, and it's when you're watching, isn't it? It's how old you are at the time. And I was 15. 15. It's burnt in. I was on a telly thing one time with Lee Sharp. Do you remember Lee Sharp? He used to play for Man United. No, Lee Sharp. It's a good lad. So we went on this thing together, and they had this bit which was like a quiz. It was like a quiz thing, like Mastermind. Do you know what I mean? So they said to me, "What do you want to answer questions on? Like football, What do you want to answer a question on?" I went, "Give me the Arsenal double team, 70-71. They went, "All right." So they've obviously talked to Lee. So we get up that evening. We get on that evening, and Lee Sharp goes up first. He gets 10 out of 12. His subject was himself.
And he got two wrong.
He got two wrong. My subject, with no revision, by the way, my subject was Arsenal 70-71. I got 12 out of 12 because it's burnt in at that age. It's absolutely burnt in. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's that's a real difference. And it's a shame that there's me and the old man, or sometimes just me, or me and neighbours, or me and a mate or two, turning up at games. For the big games, you get there at midday. For the not so big games, you can afford to get there at like 2:15. You get in there, you pay on the door, you go. 15. Where's the 15-year-olds watching modern football? Where's the 15-year-old who can go? Unless their dad can afford to spend 40 or 50 quid on a ticket for them, and by the way, have to book it, a month, 2 months, 3 months in advance, or whatever it is. How do you go? We could just go. We're going football. Yeah, of course we're going to football. Come on. Do you know what I mean? So that was the whole thing. The football, but everything around it as well was just. It was burnt in at that age. It was burnt in. And now, it's funny, there was all that talk around the European Super League and Perez going about. I'm wondering about the 15-year-olds now for whom football is like the beginning, middle, and end of everything. Because they can't go. They can't get all that. Do you know what I mean? I see kids now. I'll go and watch League Two football now. Like I'm local to Cheltenham Town, so just one promotion. We beat Harrogate on Saturday. We win the league. So there's this brilliant thing on YouTube. You can look it up. So the other night they drew 1-1 at home to Carlisle.
I saw that.
In
Yeah.
front of no fans.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was
so
all
they drew
outside,
1-1 at
weren't
home
they?
to Carlisle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see the film of it? There's
Yeah, I
like a
saw it,
15-minute film, and you look, and it's all 15 and 16-year-old kids going absolutely mental. And all right, there's the fence of the car park, like there's a big car park at Wengrow, you know, and they've obviously got it closed off, but they've started in the park. There's a park opposite the ground, and then they've come across the road. They're all up on the railings against the fence, and then all the players have run out from the ground into the car park, and they're all up there and the players are taking photos of the fans, and the fans are taking photos, and they're all 15, 16, 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
You never see it at a Premier League game.
No.
You never see it.
No, you don't. You don't. No, that was brilliant, that video. And there's also one I saw at Bolton as well, because
fantastic, isn't it?
Outside the Bolton Stadium at the weekend, that they could have got promotion if they had won. There was a load of young fans outside the stadium, like having a party outside the ground when the game was going on inside, and you know that they were all young lads as well. And that's League Two as well, Bolton. You know, so you're right. You don't see that in the Premier League, and I wouldn't have probably got into football if it wasn't back then when you could pay on the day. You could go with your mates from school and just turn up and pay and go into the ground. I probably wouldn't have got into football if I couldn't have done that. And it's what gave me the experience.
I mean, you know, and they're having, and it's why, you know, like they've looked, and all these clubs, the people like Kroenke, they've all looked at it and they've gone, oh, you know, 18 years old, nobody's getting season tickets at 18, 19, 20 anymore. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's, you know, they're interested in other things. You go, well, there's reasons for that. There's reasons for that. And by the way, if they've got it in them, those teenagers like I was, like Melvyn probably was, if you're a teenager now, to have that complete experience, complete experience, where it's you, it's your mates, it's informal, it's you make your own atmosphere, it's like, you know, all of that, you got to go into Football League. You got to go into Football League now to get that. So obviously not so many will. But the ones who do are like the ones on that video that you saw the other night from Wadden Road. They are absolutely mental for it. Like I was in 71. That's how it felt to watch Arsenal in 71. That complete and being that close to supporters. Yeah, come on the pitch.
Yeah.
You know,
no, you're right. You're right. And it's lost something. Football's lost something over the years, hasn't it? And it's that's probably what it is. I've always kind of thought to myself that there's something missing. And you're probably right. That's probably what it is. Mainly, it's that, isn't it? That connection that the young lads had to the team and to the players that has gone. It has gone now, and you're not going to get it back unless, like you said, you go down to
the connection they have to each other as well. You know, of being, we're the Arsenal. You know, being supporters rather than customers, or you know,
clients.
You could, you know, you didn't like to go and watch Arsenal. You didn't have to save up, is what I'm saying.
No.
Do you know what I mean? You didn't have to save up to go and watch Arsenal. Likewise, when you went, well, obviously I'm going every week, but you could just decide that morning to go.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You'd have some dinner and then go, walk down the Cali Mackenzie Road, over Holloway Road, and you're in. And you go and watch football. And it was informal like that. And that's a big thing as well. You know, it's like plays in the West End. You book in advance. Football. It weren't like that. You didn't have to book in advance. Cup final, you had to book in advance. You had to send in your vouchers. And that's the cup final. Any other game, you just go. Just go. The first cup final the year before, pay on the gate. Pay on the gate.
Don't you think though, Tom, looking back to the 70s, 60s and 70s, is that outside the ground there was far more atmosphere. There was a geezer selling peanuts, roasted peanuts, you were shouting roasted peanuts, roasted. Geezer around about December selling chestnuts and shouting his wares out, and the program sellers, everyone was getting a program. Not you, obviously, but everyone else was getting a program. And you know what I mean? It had like an atmosphere that you saw the same faces outside as well all the time as well. You'd see people You see it week after week. You'll stand in your little spot outside the ground like you owned it. You didn't. There's that kind of community spirit that you're all in this together, and that's my spot. I'm gonna wait till 10 to 3, and I'm going in the ground, have a chat with this one, have a chat with. Always, I used to stand outside the east stand, right outside the main marble halls, and I loved it because I was on the other side of the road, and we could see all the players coming in and out, giving envelopes to people like who bought tickets or whatever, and also chatting to the fans, chatting to their mates, and it was a lovely atmosphere. It really was. The players, like you said, are much closer to the fans. Not like it is now. One of my pet hates now is when you see.
All I was going to say, I've realised I've got shit. Look, it's half-8, but this is what the double does to me. This is what 71 does to me. But I think that there's a danger in saying, "Oh, it's not like it was in the good old days." And do you know what I mean? It's not like it was back then. It's different, but things change. Things move on. What I would say to anybody of our generation or a bit younger, and definitely to teenagers, so don't waste your time with that stuff. Go and watch your local team playing in the Football League, because you will get, I remember watching, like 4 years ago, watching Cheltenham win the National League under Gary Johnson. It was like, as it happened, I was in the stand. I was in the main stand at Wadden Road. The pitch was completely covered with fans. Gary Johnson, all the players have come up to the front of the director's box, do you know what I mean, to celebrate. It was for all the world like White Hart Lane in 70-71. It was that picture. You're seriously telling me if we were to ever win the league again at the Emirates, do you think we get on the pitch? It's just
the directors will be there, Tom. That's the thing.
I don't want to sound like I'm moaning, like, oh, we've got to go back, because we can't go back. There's no going back. There's never any going back. It's changed, and it's changed forever. What I'm saying is, I now, I watch the Arsenal. That's in the blood. That's 50 odd years. Sort of not down there. What I'm saying is, I'd go and watch lower league football, because a lot of the stuff that I fell in love with football because of, it's still there. It's still there.
Exactly it. Yeah.
And I just think, I really think, like, people of our generation, Melvyn, shouldn't waste their time moaning about how it's not like it was.
Yeah.
Go and watch Julian, go and watch Barney, go and watch whoever. Do you know what I mean? Instead, and you go, oh, this is good. This is like, the numbers are smaller, but it's a bit old school. This is fun.
Yeah.
And also, say to younger people, because once young people try it, and this is true in League Two, I'm telling you, you get like, at Cheltenham, they opened up one corner of the family stand at Wadden Road. They opened up one corner, and they said to all the kids who used to stand behind the goal, the home goal, which is where I stand now to watch, all the kids who stand behind, they went, look, you can't really make any noise there. The atmosphere ain't great. Why don't you all move over there? It's seats, but don't worry, the stewards won't get you to sit down. You can bring all your banners in, anything you want. Don't worry about it. And by the way, you'll be next to the away scores. So they've all gone down there. This was at the start of last season, before COVID closed everything down. Start of last season, they did this. First game of the season, there's all the little mob who used to stand behind the goal. Maybe 70 or 80 of them. They're all up in this corner. You're going, oh, they're having a good time. It's great. By the time COVID closed it down, there's 450 there.
Wow.
There's nothing to do in Cheltenham on a Saturday afternoon than that. Go and be with 400 other kids your age, make a noise, kick off. Can't beat it.
Yeah.
Can't beat it.
No.
So if you want to get that, otherwise, that's fine. Stick with your Premier League football. You watch your 3-minute highlights. You watch the game and you're on chat at the same time on the telly, by the way, because you can't get in the ground. But that's football has changed. But all I'm saying is, I wouldn't want you to think that I'm wasting my time moaning about how it should go back to what it was, because it ain't never going back to what it was. No, what I'm saying is, look elsewhere. Look elsewhere, because some of that experience, on a smaller scale, but still some of that experience, the right laugh you have with people, it's there. It's there.
Yeah, yeah.
And people in League Two ain't entitled. They ain't entitled.
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, I follow Dagenham and Redbridge quite a lot. That's my local team, and you know, they're obviously.
Yeah, but you've got a big shot
League
American owner now, haven't you? You've got a big shot American owner now, Daggers.
No, things have changed a little bit, but you know, it used to be that experience. And that was one of the reasons why I really got into that, you know, maybe 10 years ago for that same reason, because you could get back that we lost with all the Premier League and all that kind of stuff. So you're dead right, actually. And you know, I haven't really thought about it from the kids' point of view, but yeah, maybe young kids now maybe need to experience that and really understand what real football is in a way. I know it sounds strange calling it that, but it is, isn't it? The rawness of being on the terraces almost.
Yeah, the rawness, and also the accessibility of it. You know, if you can if you can scrounge up like £7 or £8 off your old man or your mum, you can go football. And if it's like Dagenham or Redbridge or Cheltenham Town, they ain't going to go, oh, no, you don't want to be going down there. Be careful. They're going to go, yeah, off you go. I know where you are. Do you know what I mean? It's got that. You're free. You're free.
No, you're right. You're
and that's
right.
What's great. And you can find your way around football, and that means you find your way around a lot of other things as well. Do you know what I mean? Good things and bad, but you find your way. And now, even if you can get into a Premier League game, you can't find your way to anything because they've got the tannoy is blaring at, so loud you can't even talk to the person next to you. And all the atmosphere is like piped into the ground. You know what I mean? And they're waving flags and they're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You can't manufacture atmosphere.
Yeah, no, very sterile. It is very sterile.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it is. Well, it's entertainment. It's a different thing. So that's fine, and it is a different thing, and it has moved on, and it will change, and things do change. And what you can't afford to spend your time wishing they change back again. But what I'm saying is, you can take that for what it is, but you can go and find some other stuff elsewhere that's really good, really good.
No, you're dead right.
That you can really feel a part of it. You know what I mean? You can really feel connected to.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like those kids in the car park with the Cheltenham players.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's what's so important, isn't it? I think to experience that in your life, and I say it's what made me love football, fall in love with football, was experiencing those things at Arsenal back in the day. And it's a shame that a lot of kids now won't experience that unless they maybe do start going to the smaller clubs. Maybe that will start happening a lot more, now. I think with everything that's gone on over the last year or so, I think it might start happening.
Yeah,
and it wouldn't be a bad thing, would it? There's a question here from Paul for you. He says about your book, The End. He says it's a great book. Is it still available? And is there an audible version of The End?
There's not an audible version, but it is still available. Yeah, you can still get it on. It's never been out of print. It's still around. Yeah, that was the book I did that I talked to John Samuels for, actually.
I've got that somewhere.
I've got that as well. I've got that.
Yeah, it's a really good book. Yeah, that was about the North Bank, wasn't it? That's the one, isn't it? About the North Bank.
Yeah.
And I've got that knocking around somewhere. Shane says there in the chat, you don't hear stories like this on other channels. Always brilliant to listen to relive your experiences. It's always great, isn't it? And Guna70 there says, well done getting Tom on, fantastic stuff. Guna70 also says he used to watch him in the 1980s with their mum and dad in EastEnders. Oh my God, it's lost you. So you've got a fan in as well, which is great. I'm sure you've got quite a lot of fans. But no, brilliant. I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Tom. And not only your experiences from the 71 season, which was great, but also your thoughts on this modern football as well, which is really interesting. And that was really good as well. A little bit of a bonus for us actually, because that was fantastic actually to hear that as well. And Terry says, cheers, Tom. Very entertaining. Take care and look after yourself. Yeah, exactly. Thanks for tuning in, Terry. So I say it's been
absolutely take care. Melvyn, great talking to you, mate. Richard, pity Martin Wengrow, of course. I know that was the other person who was supposed to be on, wasn't it?
Yeah. He's had a bit of technical trouble, but we're hoping to get him on tomorrow.
All right, well, say hello for me. We've done one or two European trips, me and Martin.
Yeah, he knows his Arsenal, doesn't he, Tom?
Yeah. But, 70, 71, like I say, I'm 12 out of 12 when Lee Sharp can only get 10 out of 12 when his subject is himself. So I love it. I absolutely love it. Those were the days of that day. Good old Arsenal.
No, definitely. Good old Arsenal indeed. Exactly. I say brilliant for you coming on, Tom. Thanks. I know that we'll speak again soon anyway. Take it easy, mate. Yeah. Thanks for your time again.
Take it easy.
Really nice to meet you, Tom. Thanks a lot. Really
Cheers,
appreciate
Tom.
it.
Bye now.
So that was Tom Watt, a fantastic guest on the show. Some great memories of the double, obviously 50 years ago, and thoughts on, I say, modern football as well, which was actually very interesting. That, to be fair, and he makes good points there in actual fact, because he's right what he says, and I've always felt that something been missing from football, and that's kind of it. He kind of summed it up perfectly there. And yeah, we're not going to get that back in the Premier League. We're not going to get it back at Arsenal, but it is available elsewhere. It's available elsewhere, I suppose, by looking at it, and it is. And that video that Tom mentioned about Cheltenham, actually, I think that's on YouTube. I've seen it. I saw it last week. Really, really good stuff it is, with all the fans outside the ground when they won promotion, and the players come out into the car park and stuff, and it was brilliant. It's definitely worth watching. It does give you a little feel of maybe what it was like in '71. I mean, I was unable to witness that, but I witnessed similar things later on. Not as successful, probably, but that's what football was like, wasn't it, Melvyn? It was a different time. Yeah. Great. And
it took up. I know we talk about football a lot, and it's all over on television a lot now, football. But communities spoke about football a lot more. It's more of people's life. Yeah. When people got up, a lot of people, it's the first thing on your mind: who we got, or how did we go yesterday? It was really. That was the driving force to a lot of people's lives, football, and not so much now. As I say, it's been sterilised a little bit now, hasn't it, over the years?
It has, yeah. Terry says, Melvyn, why have you got your wedding photo behind you? Your wife's missing. Meaning you Don Howe picture.
That is Don Howe. That is the Wengrow. That's the 71 team that won the final, and it's done by art by Charlie. He's an amazing artist. I've got quite a bit of his stuff. He really is good, and he was going to do one with Bertie Mia. Says, "Can I have one done, please?" With Don Howe, so we did it, and it's really, really good. Top mate, top lad. He really is.
In fact, the jacket I've got on is a little bit later on, but this was a Don Howe jacket when he was manager in 1984. Was it? Yeah, he used to wear this when he was manager. That's why I got it, actually, because it's like a 1980s kind of retro thing, and just reminds me of when I was first going to watch Arsenal and stuff like that. So. But yeah, so Shane says there in the chat, I didn't know Tommy's famous, but halfway through the stream, I was thinking to myself, he's one of the best guests to be on the channel. What's he famous for? Sorry. He was actually in EastEnders back in the 1980s. He played a character called Lofty. It was, I can't remember what years he was in it now, but it was in the sort of 80s, late 80s, 90s time. He was in EastEnders for quite a number of years, played the character called Lofty. So check it out on, there'll probably be episodes on YouTube or somewhere, or the iPlayer or something. Old episodes of EastEnders with Lofty, and then you'll see him. He's wrote a few books as well, but that's how he kind of became famous. Originally was being Lofty in EastEnders. So yeah, definitely search that and find some clips of him. He was great in it, actually. Good character.
I forgot to ask him, Richard. He used to do a channel on Arsenal TV, didn't he? He was brilliant on that. I don't know why they stopped it. I thought he was absolutely superb. So interesting. He used to interview people and stuff like that, and then for some reason Arsenal took it off. That was a real shame. That.
I mean, he was on the show. He came on a while back, actually, and we did talk about that as well, because I was talking about his career and what he had done, and that was mentioned. And I think it was just to do with a restructuring of the way that they did their kind of. I think it was. Now, wasn't it on? It was Arsenal TV, and didn't that get shut down because wasn't it through Setanta or something? And it got shut down. I think it might.
Oh, right. Fair enough. I'm trying to remember exactly.
Gooner 70 says it's from 1985, and he was in the very first episode. Yes, he was actually. Right from the start, he was in it. Yeah. And,
thanks, Neil. Thank you.
And he was on Arsenal TV. Yeah. And I think Arsenal TV shut down, didn't it? Because it was run through Setanta or something. I think that's what it was. You might know a bit more than me there. And Terry says, didn't he marry Michael Fowler or Sharon? No, I don't think he married. Who did he marry in EastEnders? Actually, that's a good point. I maybe should have asked him. Can't remember now. Can't remember anyway.
Was it Doc Cotton?
He didn't marry Doc Cotton, did he? Angie, was it Angie married? No, it wasn't. That was then, wasn't it? Then what? But I used to watch EastEnders back then. Actually, I haven't watched it for
So
years.
did I.
It used to be good.
So did
It used to be good, didn't it? Actually, back when it
It
first
did,
started.
actually,
I watched it about 10 years. Actually, the first 10 years, and then I got sick of it. I didn't think it was any good anymore. But anyway, yeah, he was good in that. So yeah, if you didn't know where he was, Shane, where he's from, definitely check that out because there's some, EastEnders used to be good then and worth watching. So check out some of the old 1980s episodes, and you'll see him. See him there. And I say he's always been a big Arsenal fan, which is great. And he's a big friend of the show as well. Oh, Michelle Fowler. He may have, maybe actually I think you're right. I think he did.
Yes, I think so.
He did marry Michelle Fowler. Yeah, I think you're right, actually. Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, I think you're right there. I kind of, EastEnders have been saying I followed for a bit and then lost it and then went back into it again for about 10 years. And but yeah, no, definitely good stuff. And I say he's a great guy, Tom, actually. And I say massive Arsenal fan and knows his stuff, as obviously you can tell there. And I say he did get 12 out of 12 in the quiz as well, which is on the 71 double. So he clearly knows his stuff on that, doesn't he? Beat Lee Sharp as well, which is good. I never forgive Lee Sharp. Do you remember when Lee Sharp scored that hat trick in that 6-2?
Yeah.
He scored a hat trick, didn't he? Yeah. I've never forgiven him for that, Lee Sharp, actually. And he's dark.
My friend in a quiz asked me, who's that Chinese player used to play for Man United? I said, Chinese player? I said, they've never had a Chinese. Yes, they have. I said, no, they haven't. He says, yes, young Lee Sharp. He played for Man United.
Quality. And I stopped watching after Grant left. Grant and Phil were the best in EastEnders. Oh, they were. I actually stopped. I'll tell you when I stopped watching it, when the guy out of Spandau Ballet, when he left. Do you remember he was in it, wasn't he? Was it Martin Kemp or Gary Kemp? Yeah. I stopped watching it after he left, when he got did he get killed? Didn't he? He got killed off, didn't he? I think there was a big episode where he was involved in a car crash. Was that right? And that would have been in the 1990s, I think. But I stopped watching it then because I used to quite like it when he was in it. And then they got rid of him, and I thought that's enough. I'm not having that anymore. And Martin, it was Martin Kemp. Yeah, there you go. Ryan said it as well, Martin Kemp. So yeah, I knew it was one of the Kemps was in it because they were in the Craze, weren't they? That film about the Craze as well. That was
yes,
it,
yeah.
That was a good film, that wasn't it? They were good. And Ryan said, "Oh, I was right. Look, you see, they killed him off by blowing him up. There you go." And it was where does it say in a car? There you go, in a car fire. Yeah, I knew it was a car crash. You see, I did remember it, long time ago. And Paul says there, great show, makes me miss the old Arsenal. Yeah, we all do, mate. Don't worry about that. He said he stopped going after we left Highbury. Now go to Leighton Orient. And Tom is right. The old school football day is still alive, but still miss Highbury. Yeah, no, you're right. That's exactly right. It is. I say I've been Dagenham and Redbridge. I used to go there a lot, follow them around up and down the country a few years back. That was for the same reason, to get that experience back. And there's Goodness 70 again. They were in the Craze. Yeah, they were in the Craze. They were very good in the Craze. They were. Great film, that, actually. Although it's not quite as good as maybe the Tom Hardy version of it later on, when he played both of them, didn't he? Tom Hardy played the two Craze, didn't he, in that film? I can't remember what it's called now. Legend, I think it is. That's a good film as well, about the Craze. But anyway, fantastic stuff. It's a shame Martin couldn't make it. Was it just... I don't know what to do if you can't get it through Google Chrome, because I don't know what else you can do.
So basically what I told him to do was to go on to... He got onto Chrome. I said, then go onto your Twitter account and log in. But obviously it didn't work, he says. So I might have a chat with him tomorrow and see if there's a space for tomorrow night. If there's a space.
See if we can get him on. Yeah, see if we can get him on. Just so you guys know, we're doing another show tomorrow. It's on Ryan's show, who's the Ryan and Mr. Arsenal podcast. We're doing a show tomorrow again for the 50th year celebration of the double. There's Sammy Nelson's coming on there, former Arsenal player who did play a few games in the double season, so that's going to be great.
Squad,
so hopefully Martin will be coming on again. There's the other Martin Levy's coming on as well, isn't he, tomorrow? Is that
That's
right?
Yeah.
And also Hillsey as well. Trev Hillsey is coming on as well. So that's going to be a really good show tomorrow, and that's on Ryan's channel. And Ryan said there's always space, Melvyn. There you go. So if we can get that sorted for tomorrow, get him onto Ryan's channel tomorrow. Be good to get him on. Hopefully he can get it sorted out tomorrow and get onto the channel.
I might need a bit of help from you or Ryan tomorrow, though. But I might have to give you a call, see what happens. Yeah,
see if we can get him sorted out. Maybe see if we can get onto the link before it goes live, just to check that it's working properly for him, rather than leaving it to the last minute like we maybe did tonight, and stuff like that, and see if we can get that sorted and get him on. That'll be good. But that'll be a good show tomorrow, actually. At 7 o'clock, that's starting as well, isn't it? That's on the Mr.
Yeah,
Arsenal.
7 o'clock, yeah.
on the Mr. Arsenal podcast tomorrow. So anybody that's enjoyed the show tonight, definitely tune into that tomorrow, because it's going to be a similar theme, obviously, on the 71 season, different guests on, different memories, obviously, everybody's got. And, of course, Sammy Nelson as well, the former Arsenal left-back, fantastic player, quite a character he is as well. And he's going to be
international as well.
Yeah, international.
Yeah.
He played over 300 games for Arsenal in his career. And he did play 4 or 5 games in a double season. He was just breaking through at that time as a young player. So I'm sure he'll have some great memories of being in the squad and being involved as well. So that's going to be really good tomorrow. So please check that out as well. I say on the Mr. Arsenal podcast, there'll be links on Twitter and everything like that. We'll be linking it all together. So that's going to be good as well. So thanks everyone for watching tonight. We've enjoyed it. I certainly have. Listening to those memories, it makes me feel sad that I was not old enough to. I know sometimes you don't want to be old here, but maybe on this particular occasion, I wouldn't mind it being 5 years older or 10 years older, been able to have experienced that season, because it would have been fantastic. But anyway, I've had my own memories as well, I guess. But yeah, so tomorrow I say we've got a great show on the Mr. Arsenal podcast. So please, I say tune in for that. Thanks to all you guys in the chat. There's been some great comments. Couldn't get through them all because it was sort of busy going on, and Tom had a lot of great stories. I didn't want to put him off from his story because it was just so great listening, really entertaining stuff. So yeah, obviously all you guys in the chat, thanks for with Terry and Shane and everybody else that's been in. And thanks for letting me know about this one, Melvyn.
No problem, Neil. No problem at all.
Glad you've enjoyed it, and it's good to have you involved as well. And Shane says brilliant stuff. Thanks for watching, Shane. Thanks for your support of the channel, and thanks to everybody else as well. I say make sure you tune in tomorrow to the Mr. Arsenal podcast, because that is going to be a great show that as well. I say especially if you enjoy hearing about all the old days, the good old days as we like to call them, and there were obviously some great days as well. But yeah, it's been a brilliant show. So thanks to Melvyn as well, of course, for coming on. Melvyn, where can people find you on social media?
As it says here, Melvyn the Only Way is Arsenal. Mark's on Twitter. I'm on this channel a hell of a lot. I'm on Ryan's channel, Mr. Arsenal 89, and I'm on from Dial Square to Away with Andrew. So thanks very much for having me on. I do appreciate it. I really do.
No, it's been a pleasure. Great to hear your stories again as well. And obviously, it's great to see the 1971 FA Cup final ball as well there next to Melvyn, which is fantastic as well, isn't it? The actual ball from the FA Cup final 1971. 50 years old that ball is. And you can still, if you took it out of the box, can you still play with it? Is it still got air in it, or do you have to pump it up?
It's got air in it. I think I can see Charlie's boot mark. I'm not sure.
Fantastic. I mean, what a great memento that is, actually. The actual ball
for the players.
That Charlie smashed it. That Charlie smashed into the net. Absolutely brilliant. What a fantastic. I've got Wojciech Chesney's gloves. I know it's not quite the same, but that's about as far as I've got with memorabilia. There's nothing to match the football from the 1971 FA Cup final, though. So he says,
only one ball in, Richard. There's only one ball in those finals.
Only one?
Yeah, there was only one ball played in the final years ago. Not like now. That was the only ball that was played in the final years.
Yeah, they've got 20 balls every game, haven't they? When they throw the ball on. And Ryan says, see you all over on my side tomorrow. Yep, definitely will do. And Neil there says, a great piece of memorabilia it is. It's probably the greatest piece you can have in Arsenal history, really, isn't it? Apart from maybe starting from the 1930s, which I don't know if there's much of that about anymore, but it's probably
Alex James's jockstrap or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's as good as that. It's as good as it gets. The 71 FA Cup final ball. I mean, what more could you want? Actually, should be in a football museum, and it's better in Melvyn's house without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, what a great, it is. Fantastic piece of memory. It's great that it's been on the show as well. We've had Tom Watt, of course, fantastic, superstar Arsenal fan and great actor and author. And we've also got the FA Cup final ball all on the same show. And tomorrow is Sammy Nelson. So, I mean, we're really spoiling you, aren't we, this week with everything? So, fantastic stuff. And it's been great to do a show like this, actually. But I was looking forward to this, actually, since we kind of get it all set up, because I do feel as though, say, the 50th year of the first double, I think it's such an important part of Arsenal's history, actually. And, it's one of the things that when I was growing up and learning about football and learning about Arsenal, that was one of the things that really, drew me even more to the club. I mean, I was always going to be a fan of Arsenal anyway because of my mum, but it was you're reading about the 71 double team and all that kind of really kind of made it even more you know, drew me even more to the club actually. So I know how important it is. And Neil said, thanks for organising it for all of us. Great work. No, I'm glad you've enjoyed it, and thanks for tuning in. And he says, what a great show as well. It was a great show. I really enjoyed it. And I say there's more to come as well tomorrow, and that's going to be good as well. So might even be better tomorrow. Who knows? Sammy Nelson, he's going to be a good character to speak to, definitely. So definitely stay tuned for that as well. So that's on the Mr. Arsenal podcast tomorrow on the other channel. That's going to be really good. So yeah, thanks to everyone for watching. Obviously, thanks to Melvyn. Thanks to the FA Cup final ball. Thanks to Don Howe as well for his appearance. In the background, of course, the coach from 71, and of course, former manager of Arsenal as well. And to Tom Watt, of course, a fantastic guest who was on earlier. He actually was only going to do an hour and he ended up doing an hour and a half. So it shows how much he enjoyed himself, which is great. And I'm sure we'll be back on the channel again at some point in the future. But I say thanks to everyone for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already. Give it a like as well. And I say tune in to Ryan's channel tomorrow, Mr. Arsenal podcast, for more great stuff from the 50th anniversary of Arsenal's first double. Wow, 50 years ago. Incredible, isn't it, Melvyn? Incredible. But
I'm only 28 as well. I don't know how I saw those games.
Exactly. It's amazing. But anyway, 50 years ago. Actually, 50 years ago today was a Tottenham game that we won the league. And on Saturday, it's 50 years since the FA Cup final as well. So a whole week of celebrations. You know, we're doing a couple on this channel, I say, on Ryan's channel as well. So yeah, it's going to be all good stuff. So yeah, so definitely watch that tomorrow because you're going to enjoy it. So thanks everybody, and in the meantime, of course, as always, come on you Gunners! I want 71 again in you know, maybe in 2022 or something. Would be nice, wouldn't it? We'll repeat it again, the double again. Come on.